All right, today I'm going to explain some of the basic components to either oven or either stove or barbecue systems that introduce gas. So these would be the burners that that ignite and then ultimately give you the flame that you need to do your cooking. Okay, so I have everything from an antique on up to there. That's an antique on up to something modern day like this piece off of a Viking right here. Okay, they look drastically different, but all burner systems basically share the same basic components, and they've been basically the same for the last 100 to 150 years, ever since we've had gas lines. And in some cases, like if you're out in a rural area, you're going to be dealing with propane. Okay, so the basic setup for gas, obviously, or propane, is that you have a tube that the gas comes into. You know, that's a supply tube, and then it feeds the ignition source. The flame source, which this is one example of a burner, and that's another example of a barbecue burner. It feeds a flame source after it's regulated by a gas knob. Now, before it actually gets introduced into there or there, okay, before it actually gets introduced into the tube, the gas has to be regulated to a specific pressure, a working pressure, okay? And I'm not going to get into that. That's not what this discussion's about. I've got other discussions on regulators and how they work and similarities and differences, okay? This is strictly about the basic components towards the gas source, namely the valves themselves, okay? So regulator regulates the gas, comes into here. Now, if you're talking about propane, you're looking at 10 or 11 inches of water column. That's what they rate the pressure as, okay? And that's water column as specified by atmospheric pressure and how many inches of water will actually go up a column if you take that pressure out, okay? Anyway, goes up the tube, comes through this, you turn the knob, well, turn it. You have to push the knob in and then turn it, and then it ignites. Okay, and I can't turn this because I'm one-handed right now. Okay. Anyway, the valves themselves, okay, are either going to be this type. Basically they're going to break down to something like this, or they're going to break down to where the valve is on top, and then the gas feeds through the tube. Okay. Now this here Viking has a. Oh, I wanted to get into what happens after it goes up the tube. Okay, this is the tube that goes up to the burner. Okay, so the Viking uses a jet that looks like this. This is a TP style orifice. Okay, and you'll see spud type orifices like this. This is a very old fashioned one, but they're basically the same even nowadays. Okay, or you'll see you'll see either a hooded orifice like this or a spud type orifice like this. This is the most common type. Okay, and it's got a little hole in the end of it. I don't know if you can see that. Well, actually, this one doesn't have a hole. It's not drilled yet, but you can see through the teepee one has a hole in it. They have holes. Okay, and so does this. Okay, and that hole has to be a very specific size to introduce the gas. The size is determined on the BTU rating of the burners that it's going to, and the pressure of the gas that's on the other end trying to get to the burner. Okay, so goes through. You turn the valve on. This valve here, the stem is broken off, so that's why I've got these. It shows how the valve comes off of here. If this was whole, there'd actually be a piece coming off of here, and then there'd be a knob right here. In fact, here, I'm going to put this on my little set of hands so I can show you a little bit better. Okay, this would actually have a knob on it. Whoops. This would actually have a knob right here, and then you turn that on and off. Okay, so this stem right here is the broken part of what goes into here, opens up the valve. The valve comes from the tube, which is just like this. Okay, this actually goes onto a tube, and then it's regulated. Well, it's not regulated. It's actually you're regulating it by turning this knob either higher or lower. Shoots into here. The gas goes up the tube. right here is a very critical part of this system. This is where the air gets mixed in with the gas, because you can't just ignite straight gas, because you have to be able to trim the flame. So to be able to do that, you're going to have a required amount of air that has to be mixed in with the gas as it shoots up the tube, ready to go into the burner head. Okay, and the way to regulate that gas, or the way to regulate the air, is to open it up. In this case, this is probably the most complex system that you'll see here. This is a Viking stove. You have to open or close the window so it allows more or less air into there. You can see how closing it is going to choke off the air supply. Okay, on this guy here, which is, now this is more typical. This is an old-fashioned stove setup, but this is more typical of what a modern-day barbecue is going to have. It's going to have an air shutter here that's a window, and you can move this. I can't move it because it's kind of rusted, but anyway, you can see that there's a window, and as you open it, it lets more air, and as you close it, it disallows air. You can't see the air openings right now because the shutter's set to closed, but it actually should be open. Okay, but the most common type that you're going to see, especially on a stove or a barbecue, is this type. This type here. Okay, here's your little spark igniter. Okay, this type here has a window right here. You see that window right there? That window, when you unscrew this, it will either open or shut, and it will let either more or less air into there. The the tube fits right over an orifice like that, and then the gas shoots up in here, leaks out of these holes, bam, it ignites. Okay, and then that's what this igniter is all about. Okay, so that's basically it. Okay, now I wanted to get a little bit more into the Viking, since it's a little bit more complex than the rest of these setups here. Okay, well, first of all, your basic gas setup is something like this. Got a gas tube feeding the knobs. I've got these taped off because I painted this. Feeding these knobs, okay? And then you've got your valve right here. This is the valve, okay? And then you have to push it down because it's a safety type setup. You push it down, and then you turn it to whatever setting you want. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that. Okay, you push it down, then you turn it to whatever setting you want, high, low, whatever. I think on barbecues, I think they make you turn it all the way up before it actually ignites. Okay, now the thing about this gas valve is that there is another, as well as the air fuel mixture, there's another setting on this valve that allows you to adjust how high the flame is. Okay, and on this one here, it's actually, oops, let me get this out of here. On this one here, the low flame setting is actually right here in the middle of this knob. There's a little tiny jeweler's screw there. You put a screwdriver down in here, and then you could trim how low or high the low flame setting is just by tweaking that little screw. Okay, on the Viking, it's a different setup. Okay, first of all, it's a 90-degree valve. Okay, because the valve stem comes into the top instead of going through the middle of it. Okay, this actually goes on a piece of tubing like this. Okay, and then it shoots gas into here. So the valve from the top controls what's going on through here. It's pretty intricate. Okay, the low flame setting for the Viking is actually this little screw right here. You can unscrew or screw that valve there, and it will adjust what the lowest flame setting is, so you can get a nice low flame on the low end, and then obviously on the high end, it's going to be the highest flame possible. Okay, so that's a very critical adjustment, that low flame setting, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get low heat for a simmer burn. Okay, one of the other things that you might note on the Viking here, okay, like I said, this stem is broken. There's normally a stem that comes up through here. One of the other things you might notice is that when the stem does come out, there's this little electronic piece. Hey, what's that, right? Well, actually, what that is there's a micro switch right here. This is the part that toggles the micro switch. I don't know if you can see it, but that little piece right there, you You can hear it, okay? That piece turns on the spark ignition system. So that's why you have two prongs here. Turns on the spark ignition, so it ignites the burner, okay? So you turn it on, you know, the knob's going to be right here. You turn it on, turns on the spark ignition system, ignites the burner, and then on Vikings, they sense once on most stoves, they sense once the spark is ignited, the spark ignition system has a certain amount of resistance built into it that increases with heat. Then it turns itself off. There's actually a little electronic circuit that turns off the spark ignition, so it's not constantly sparking. If you have a stove that's constantly sparking, that means something's going on with that ignition system. But that's basically how they work, okay? So that's basically it, okay? So gas comes in through here from one of these pipes, goes out here, air gets adjusted here, low flame gets adjusted here. Okay, and it's the same for basically all stoves. So I hope you learned something from this video. Kind of give you a little bit of a primer on how, you know, gas systems work and what kind of adjustments have to be made. And you know, I'm just getting into generalities here. I mean, this video isn't intended to be an instructional video. It's just intended to you know, give you some information on how these systems work and you know, what makes them tick. It's not designed to be educational, but it's for entertainment purposes only. Well, thanks for watching the video.